Hi, everybody. It's Brian Wilson, the co-instructor for the 2019 Computational Law course with Mila Rioja, teaching assistant for the 2019 Computational Law course, and our esteemed guest, Michelle Gitlitz from Blank Rome. She's a partner there and co-chairs their digital currencies working group. And one of the things that we're going to be doing today with this smart legal contracts workshop is kind of recapping a little bit of what we touched on in the lecture, but also diving in a little bit more into some of the practical applicability of smart legal contracts with the specifically looking at the questions that you guys have submitted in Pigeonhole, kind of looking at some of the feedback that different people have there while the session's live and ongoing. And then also trying to weave in a little bit the great feedback that we had yesterday from the in-person session that we did with the Open Music Initiative, where everybody kind of sketched out a framework for publishing rights organizations to interact better with musicians, with a specific focus on the copyright issues that kind of exist there, and the way that the money kind of flows between the different rights holders that are part of that ecology. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Michelle and let her take it away.
So are people, I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So are people going to ask questions, or am I going?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. And where will I see the questions?
So they're on that link that I sent you.
Okay, perfect. Hold on. I can't.
And then Mila should be able to help kind of disintermediate the questions with the conversation.
Okay, I'm just trying to open it up in a different tab so that I can see the questions, and I didn't realize. I'm sorry. Do you want to tell me what one of the questions is, and I can start?
Yeah, so the first question that came in was, are there any companies that you find to be super exciting in the smart contract field with a special eye towards the music industry?
You know, I think that the companies that, you know, have been contributing and featured, oh, whoops, I did the wrong thing, with respect to this program are obviously very interesting. I think there's also just in general a need in the music industry to be able to understand and be able to effectuate getting artists and authors, and even in photography, artists in general, their payment for their contributions. And so to the extent that smart contracts can help us more effectively both disintermediate and also make sure payments get to the right people, the rightful owners, I think that really helps. In terms of companies, I think what some of the accounting firms are doing is really interesting, because their job is to audit the royalty payments. And so that's sort of the last line of defense, which I like to say, because, you know, if the payments were not made correctly in the first place to the artist or the author or the photographer, then the auditor can step in and can correct that mistake. But the auditors oftentimes, they are only looking at a sampling of payments that were made because they are auditing. And so what we're seeing now is the audit firms are moving toward being able to do 100% auditing with smart contracts and artificial intelligence and things like that. And I think it's really going to move the ball forward.
Well, amazing. Thank you for your first reply. That's quite interesting. So let's hop on to the second question now. And Michelle, please feel free also to provide further information based on the lecture we already had. So if you're able to extrapolate a little bit more on that.
I'm sorry, what would you like me to extrapolate on?
possible companies that you find. Well, you talked about companies that exist in the market, but what about companies that don't exist just yet and would be like a very fruitful, you know, and could make things better in such way?
I think that to the extent that there are companies out there who can better assess and assign revenue sharing agreements, I think that would be really helpful. There's also a question about amendments to smart contracts, and I think that perhaps there won't necessarily, you can't amend a smart contract in a traditional way by erasing the contract that already exists. You can just set up either a side module or another contract that would coordinate with the already existing contract that's immutable to be able to effectuate the secondary or split payments that could come in the future that amended the contract.
Yeah, thanks. So we have Brian back. One second.
Yes, sorry.
We were just discussing the very first question about what companies that she feel would be interesting, and we extrapolated a little bit more because we're talking about some companies that she knew, and then she told us about like what could be like prospective companies or ideas.
Yeah, I think the idea about getting different prospective companies formed, especially in this space, is always something that's really exciting. I know it was only a year ago that we were really excited about in this course, especially like the advent of CryptoKitties as a real thing that was happening. And now it's kind of pushed the envelope with regard to what is possible with smart contracts and smart legal contracts, especially with like this conceptualization of a non-fungible token. I think, especially as it is considered kind of like a work of art in a similar way, the idea that we could have something that, you know, not in a digital world, but can be like tokenized and kind of reduced to something that people recognize stores a certain value is a really cool and exciting thing for moving forward. With that in mind, I don't know very much about non-fungible tokens, and I was wondering if you could like kind of provide us with a little bit of information there.
I'm not sure I could speak extensively on non-fungible tokens, but
I'm sorry, we can't hear you. I don't know if there's an error on our end or if it's on mute or.
Oh, I'm not on mute.
What?
Uh-oh.
It's.
Let me ask.
Can you hear me?
Hold on, just one moment. Bear with us, and we'll try and get this figured out.
Because nothing happened on
Michelle,
my
if you could jump out and then jump back in using the same link, I want to see if that will work.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody. All right, we can see you.
Is that better?
Yes, now we can hear.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
So you were asking about non-fungible tokens?
Yes.
So that's, you know, that's a token that's unique, right? It's not like a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. And I think what's interesting is the concept that, and some companies are starting to do this, that you can create your own work and use either a non-fungible token or use some type of music platform that will pay you royalties. So instead of just putting your work up on the internet or putting your work up on the platform, there's a new mechanism for, you know, say new artists or undiscovered artists to generate their own money through, using a token or a blockchain, rather than an established artist who we know already has an arrangement with a record label or something like that, or with Amazon for books to get paid.
Okay, so with that in mind, do you kind of see this? And I think I know the answer to this, but I just want to make. I don't want to say something that could be wrong. I want you to have the. Oh my gosh! Am I on mute? Was I on mute?
No, nobody's on mute.
So, kind of in that vein, do you see this move towards decentralization as one that will open up parts of the market to like the smaller players more so than the larger players?
I'm not sure I'd say open the market up, but at least provide access to, and at least provide a mechanism by which people who are either unrepresented or, you know, I guess when people started being able to self-publish their own books and sell them on Amazon, that was a really big deal. And I think we're starting to see the music industry move to the same place. I think the identification and distribution of royalties in general is something that's really ripe for the use of blockchain, but also the idea that you don't need an intermediary, you don't need an agent, you don't need a record label to be able to sell and monetize your music. That's important, right? That helps the quote struggling artist, that helps everybody. And I think it'll bring more people and more diversity to market.
Hold on, we're still having one bit of trouble, and we think it may be on our end, but I think I may know a fix for it, so just a couple of seconds.
Okay, no worries.
All right, so we have hopped on with another computer. Are you able to hear us, Michelle? From
Yeah, this is much better.
Okay, we still are having some trouble on our end here with your audio, and I'm not sure how to fix. Okay, wait, there. Can you try and say something real quick?
Testing.
Yes. Okay. We're back. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about that. It cut out in the middle of what you were saying about non-fungible tokens.
Okay, so we know that a non-fungible token represents something unique, right? And so I think that may be a potential way for artists and authors and other types of people who are creating art or creating music to potentially market and get paid for their contributions. The other side of the coin, so to say, is creating additional platforms that are decentralized, where people don't need agents, they don't need record labels to be able to get paid for the music or the content that they're creating. And you know, that's important because it means that more people can get their deliverables heard and also get compensated. And we know that there's companies like Blockchain that are, you know, specialize in helping people get to market and get paid for the content that they're putting out there.
Nice. Had previously been kind of closed off, or in a way inhibited or limited by the high cost that it takes to get in. And so I think that's, in terms of just the ethos of blockchain, I think that lies very well with what the whole point of it is, going back to kind of like Satoshi's white paper vision of it. And even some of the stuff by, some of the earlier stuff by Nick Szabo. Sorry, we had another feedback thing. Let me pull up some of the Pigeonhole feedback really quickly so we can get to more of the questions. Kevin points out asks, so smart contracts work only for controlled compositions. Can we make clever contracts that allow for works with multi-stakeholders, like a Beyonce song where there might be different, like a lot of different people who were either sampled or accredited with having some contribution to that song? Would there be a way to make smart contracts that allow for those works to kind of be disintermediated to?
Oh, you froze at the end of the question, but I read the question. So
Okay.
So I think what you were saying was, is there a way to the multiple stakeholders to be able to make a smart contract that allows the multiple stakeholders to participate?
Yeah.
And I don't profess to be a developer or a coder, but from a legal standpoint, we know that if we can draft the terms of a legal contract, we're working with the coders and the developers to be able to implement that on blockchain. Whether we can do that today, I've not seen that yet today, but I find it hard to believe that it's not possible. And just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean that it's not out there.
And to that point, I think one of the things that they went over yesterday a little bit in the working session that we did in person was involved two composers who collaborated together to create like one song. And some of the insight that came out of there is an architecture where you can do it, whether that's, it just involves the level that you want the payment to come from. So whether that's, you have it, whether you want it to go directly from the PRO, so the rights management organization who's getting the money to all of the artists, or whether you want it to be at a lower level where you create some sort of investment vehicle or kind of like some sort of autonomous entity that the money is instead sent to, where the permissions of that autonomous entity are such that, it's set so that anytime a composition is created and it is sent to, say, party one of the organization who helps create the song, it also, based on the arrangement set up in the smart contract, splits it and has it sent to all of the parties that are necessary. So I think there's definitely a way that it could be done. What that might actually look like, I remain a little bit less sure of. Hold on, and I'm gonna get to the questions on this laptop. Sorry for all of the technical difficulties in this.
Nope, that's okay. Is Mark joining?
I had thought he had the link, but I'm not sure. He did send us a message with some feedback while the session was going, so I think he is out there. But Mark, if you're out there, we would love for you to join so that we could kind of talk a little bit more about some of the goings on of yesterday. And now I just got to the Pigeonhole widget. So Ivan mentions that audits of music usage could eventually be performed by AI reading the blockchain. Is this something any auditors you mentioned are currently working on? And if so, do you know who these groups are?
For sure. I can't disclose the names of the people who I'm doing work with for it. But definitely AI is a huge component of ensuring that the auditors who want to use blockchain to audit the music royalty payments are able to review all of the different records and contracts that they need to review to be able to do, whether it be an 85 or 90 or 95% or even 100% audit. So AI is a huge component, and I always love to talk about how AI and blockchain can be married together. It's a pretty magical solution.
Yeah. So one of the areas that I work in is with.
Oh, is Mark here?
I'm here.
Oh.
Hi, everyone.
This recent comment about the compatibility of AI and its potential applications with blockchain. I think, just in some of the work that I've seen and been doing in the insurance space, at the enterprise sort of level, it seems like the only way to kind of take catalog of a lot of these digital assets involves using some form of AI, whether it's machine learning, to kind of get an understanding of what is there, and then a kind of like blockchain sort of back end where you can then take what is there and kind of make it so that you have an absolute record of it that everybody agrees on and that is widely accepted as the kind of single source of truth. That seems to be kind of like the combination. Are there any other areas that what are some of the other areas that you have seen or that you can hypothesize about that would see this combination of the two together as a particularly advantageous combination?
Is that for me or for?
Yeah, sorry, my fault.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was for Mark.
Basically, just wondering about the, what are some other examples of the combined synergies of blockchain with AI?
I think certainly we've seen it in the legal context in terms of researching and being able to cull records, public filings on say PayServe with the courts. When we used to do legal research, it was all manual. First it was in books, and then it was online, and now we're able to use AI to scan documents and be able to give us outputs and say, here's the cases that were cited in a brief that looks very similar to an issue that you were citing to, and here are the cases that you should look at. I mean, that was something that, it wasn't even a thought in our minds 10 years ago, and those tools are readily available to us now because of AI. In terms of blockchain and the combination of it, I think what you may start to see that in the bankruptcy context. I think that there's a lot of potential applications for trustees in bankruptcy using blockchain to help manage claims against the estate, and to use AI. It's so intensive, the volume of information that the trustee needs to get through, that I've heard that people are looking at pairing blockchain and AI in that context.
Okay. It's really helpful, I think, because, knowing that there are like a couple of use cases where this can happen, also, I think, starts getting people thinking about it and getting people open to the ideas of it, and then starting to think about it in, potentially new contexts where, people haven't even really begun to think of it. And I think this kind of music vignette that we were able to do yesterday is one area where it was, particularly helpful. And I want to give Mark a chance to kind of introduce himself and then provide like a little bit of talk about what we were able to go through yesterday, and then kind of steer the discussion a little bit from there.
Well, hi, Dornick. I'm flattered that I've been given this role because I'm really the interloper here. I'm neither an attorney nor a software engineer nor in the music business. But I've acquired a boatload of information in the 2.5 days that I've been participating in the course. Yesterday's in-person session involved George Howard from the Open Music Initiative, two gents from Red Bull Music House, and two gents from IBM. When we basically did a walkthrough of what smart contracts might be able to bring to the Open Music Initiative, with the objective of helping emerging enable them to make a sustainable living. The way we ultimately mapped this out was to discuss the purpose, legal, technical, and social aspects of this from the perspective of these three entities and the perspective of the artist. Just looking over my notes, the issues that we have in tandem with Michelle's topic are how to deal with the performing rights organizations. It's a very fragmented marketplace. They're granted monopolies by government action. So it necessitates that there are many, many intermediaries in the current value chain. We talked about contracts that are simple enough for artists to use, because song splits can get complicated and get amended over time. That assignability of rights is a requirement.
Sorry about that.
Is it a fire drill?
Leave the building. As you guys can hear, we have to leave for a fire thing. Apologies about this. We will get this sorted out at some point. Thank you.
What happened here? It's gone. Thanks. Sorry about that. Oh, right. Hmm. Sorry about that. Um, yeah. Um, uh, Sorry with this recording. If you uh, oh, hi. Tomorrow it's just the exact software. Um, Come on, Kevin. On. Um, here we go. Um, Following open conditional. That's what I want. But we had following music. And this time save. Yeah, unusually,